Bulletcast for life.
Welcome everybody to another edition of Under the Radar. My name is Brandon, and on today's podcast we're going to go over three different shows, very important shows. The first one, we're going to have Miz and Mrs, the season finale, and we have the first NXT TV show emanating from Full Sail University after NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 4, and we will be going over my thoughts on All In. So let's just jump right into it. We have the season finale of Miz and Mrs. On the last episode, we saw them on their little shenanigans, on their little tour bus route all the way from LA to Austin. They had some issues, as is always the case on these long road trips, but we finally get to see the new house that Miz and Maurice have bought in Austin, Texas. Very beautiful home, I might say. It has a guest house, so Maurice's mom was going to live there. They call it Castle Marmiz, and it basically looks like a castle. It's like built out of like brick, and it's very big house. It's probably, half the price of what their house was in LA. So good for them for doing that, and technically I understand why they would do it, because it's in the middle of the country, and with Miz, you got to travel, going to New York or going to LA. It's not a cross-country trip like it would be if you lived on either the East Coast or the West Coast. So just kind of settling in the middle of the country kind of makes sense. So basically what happened is it's just them moving into the house, setting up everything. They get there, they realize that not all the work is done on remodeling the house yet. There's still workers all over the place. There's dust everywhere, but luckily, since they have the guest house, they're able to stay in there. So they didn't want Monroe to get get the dust and be around all these people. And there's like people coughing and stuff like that. I mean, I don't even know how old the baby is. The baby's maybe a couple weeks at this point. So Miz, being the overprotective, or not overprotective, but sincere father that he is, looking out for the health and well-being of his daughter, goes down to the medical store and buys like masks and gloves for all the workers so they can wear it, so they don't get everybody sick. And then Maurice's mom is doing Maurice's mom type things by going on a scooter and running everything over in the store. And that's basically it. There was also a point in time when they thought they lost the dog, but the dog is fine. Pumpkin, as the dog's name is. They have a little dog named Pumpkin and a big dog named Mocha. So shout out to Starbucks. Pumpkin spice latte coming out right now for the fall time. But Marie steps in dog shit because she was looking for her dog. And then they reflect. Miz and Maurice go on a little date, on a little dinner or lunch date, and they reflect on how hard it's been the last couple days, but yet they're eating caviar at the moment, so how hard can their life really be? And they laugh, and they go into the sun. They roll on into the sunset, and that is it for Miz and Mrs. Only 6 episodes, I believe, so a short season, maybe a little test run for USA, and then obviously it did big numbers, and it's also helped out by the fact that it airs right after SmackDown, so you kind of have a built-in audience of people who would want to watch it. And I think it's kind of like gets over 1 million views every single week, so that's a good sign. I think it gets better viewers than Total Divas and Total Bella does. And I think it's just kind of more of a factor of where the show is. As I said, right after SmackDown, it's only a half hour. It's not an hour like the other shows are, so you don't have to commit that much. You can just kind of keep it on in the background after SmackDown, and kind of pay attention to it, or maybe do some other things if you got to. I guess on the East Coast it comes on at 10 o'clock, but for me, being on the West Coast and having a satellite, it comes on at like 8 o'clock, or no, it comes on at 7 o'clock. So it's kind of around the same time, we're getting dinner ready and getting everything situated. So it's just a nice little thing to keep on in the background. But as Miz said after, believe the second episode, they've already renewed for season 2, and they did the little teaser saying that Miz and Mrs. will be back in 2019, so hopefully this podcast is still around, and we'll be covering Miz and Mrs. Season 2. So let's get on to some wrestling. We have the NXT TV report, the first show from Full Sail University after the takeover. Credits roll, and William Regal is outside his office, and Kathy Kelly is outside asking if all these people inside the in his office has anything to do with the Aleister Black situation. He said yes. He has his lawyers and an investigation team looking into the matter, and he says that he's going to start his investigation right now. And throughout the show, he talks to various wrestlers, get their side, see if they saw anything. So yeah, that's how the show started off. Then Mauro Ranallo opens up the show. They talk. Johnny Gargano makes his way out to the ring, limping on a crutch. The crowd chants Johnny. Gargano comes into the middle of the ring, cuts a little promo, says that he kind of what I speculated. He's kind of turned into Ciampa by thinking about Ciampa too much and trying to get rid of him. He doesn't like the man he's become. He says he doesn't deserve all the praise and all the acumen that the fans have been giving him thus far. And just kind of, not a broken man, but definitely a conflicted man. Johnny Gargano is right now, doesn't know where to go. He tried his hardest, but still was not able to defeat Tommaso Ciampa. Maybe because he tried so hard, that's why he wasn't able to defeat him, because he has beat him in the past. He beat him in the first match. And he wasn't trying to like eviscerate him, and he wasn't over aggressive or over emotional in that first match compared to the last two, and that's the ones he lost. So obviously, it's a nice little storyline we got going on right now. William Regal comes out, and he confronts him about the Aleister Black situation. Gargano didn't really give him an answer. He didn't actually say yes or no. He just said, "You know me, Regal. You should know." You should know if I did it or not. And he just said, "Look into my eyes." And then all of a sudden, Velveteen Dream's music hits. The crowd cheers for him, gets a big pop. And then Velveteen Dream and Johnny Gargano kind of go back and forth. This sets up a little scuffle. Gargano says the doctor recommended him to have this crutch just to keep his weight off his knee. But he said he doesn't need it anymore, and he threw the crutch at Dream. And this sets up a little kerfuffle between the two. William Regal broke it up and said if you guys want to fight so bad, then they will do it next week. So that is probably the main event for next week's show. Velveteen Dream going up against Johnny Gargano. Velveteen Dream coming off his win against EC3. Gargano coming off his loss against Ciampa. Should be a fun match. Don't expect to see... NXT sometimes shocks me with this, but I wouldn't expect to see a finish. Maybe something happens. Maybe Gargano still gets... put over the deep end, or we get an appearance by Tommaso Ciampa, and somehow we get disqualification. But I think it should be a fun match, Gargano and Dream. If this is a feud going forward, the next takeover isn't until November, so you can have time build up these matches and maybe have kind of like what Impact has, kind of have pay-per-views or specials on your TV shows where you have one show, every 2 months or so, have, a lot of different title matches and other things going on. So next up, the announcers announce or talk to us about Undisputed Era facing against Ricochet and Pete Dunne. EC3 is also going to face Raul Mendoza, and then Dakota Kai is going to face Aaliyah. So that is what the first match of the show is. Also, before the match, we had Undisputed Era shown backstage. Nothing too fancy. They were just kind of talking amongst themselves. Don't actually hear what they're talking about. But we had Dakota Kai against Aaliyah, and Dakota Kai wins in 5 minutes and 12 seconds. The match was all right. Aaliyah she's kind of gone through a lot of different gimmick changes throughout her career. She was on the Breaking Ground show, which I enjoyed Breaking Ground quite well. I believe it's like 2 years ago at this point. It's like one of the first major documentary type shows they've had on the network. They only had one season. I don't even remember if Bayley was still in NXT at this point. That's how long ago this show was. They had Aaliyah. She was kind of the rookie. She just kind of was building her way through the company. The whole story was she didn't really know what her gimmick was going to be, but then in the end she was able to find her gimmick, and I believe this was her not fairy, but belly dancer type gimmick, because I believe she's of Iranian descent. She's Canadian Iranian bars, something like that. She's definitely of Middle Eastern descent, so I think that was her first gimmick, and then she had some sort of cat gimmick like Natalia. She came out with like cat ears, and then now her gimmick is kind of like a spoiled brat. She comes out in Versace inspired attire. Don't know if it's real Versace. If it is, good for her for being able to afford that. But back to the match. Dakota Kai won. It was a fine match. I felt like Aaliyah got a lot of offense in. Aaliyah's still green in the ring. Bars again. Despite how long she's actually been in the company. She's been with the company for, at least 3 years at this point on NXT television, I think. And she just still, I haven't seen that much of an improvement in her work. I mean, she's a beautiful woman. She looks athletic. I mean, kind of a throwback, not in the good way, to, I guess, like the Divas division back in the day, 10, 15 years ago. I mean, I feel like if this was the Divas division, she would probably already be up on the main roster just because she has a different look. She's a beautiful woman. She doesn't have the best wrestling acumen, but that wasn't a factor 15 years ago. But Dakota Kai did not get as much offense in as I would have liked. Aaliyah was on offense a lot. Dakota Kai, great seller. It bodes well for her character, but I don't think especially after what's happened with Kai lately, she kind of lost. She's kind of get her mojo back, and then having to fight this hard to defeat Aaliyah. Not a good spot for her. But maybe with the women or the Mae Young Classic going on right now, maybe Dakota Kai is just kind of there. Maybe not to spin her wheels, but maybe we're going to get like a new influx of talent in on the women's division side, and maybe we'll get some new baby faces, because right now the baby face and the entire women's division in general definitely needs some new life pumped into it. So next up, we go to Regal's office, and he's talking to Velveteen Dream. Velveteen Dream didn't really say, or he said he wasn't a part of it, and he just told him to get out of here. And then we have Steve Cutler, Wesley Blake, and someone else were called in. Basically, they were saying that they want to get an opportunity, and they pointed out that the footage shows that they just parked and they left. So they couldn't have been and attacked Aleister Black if they just drove up to the arena. So, fine, I guess, for what it was. Definitely introducing a new little team or faction of these three guys. So William Regal said that they will get their opportunity next week, so fine for what it was. A little side note, William Regal had his brass knuckles on a velvet cushion on his desk. Just a little side note, that was kind of a funny little touch. They build up the EC3 match again, but then they go backstage and they see EC3 being laid out in the hallway, and Lars Sullivan was walking away. So next up, Then they show Raul Mendoza coming out, and then EC3 did not show up, but instead Lars Sullivan did. Lars Sullivan admitted to attacking EC3, and then he goes to attack Raul Mendoza, squashes him. So it looks like we're setting up some sort of EC3 Lars Sullivan match or feud. Not another spot or another feud for EC3 that I don't see him winning. I think Lars Sullivan is definitely someone that Triple H is high on. I'm sort of high on him. I love his character. He's a big guy, but he's not like a dumb, brooding. Not to say Braun Strowman's a dumb character by any means, but he's just more of an articulate monster. He talks. He doesn't like scream and yell like Braun Strowman is, even though he is smaller than Braun Strowman. But in NXT, with a lot of smaller guys on the roster, Lars Sullivan at his size right now looks like a monster compared to everybody else. So once again, we have another backstage segment with William Regal asking questions. Nikki Cross is in her chair, just spinning around, giggling like a little child. William Regal's trying to get her under control and ask her some questions. Nikki's just kind of all over the place and makes a mess, not really answering the question, and then she kind of she says that somebody was calling her, so then somebody was calling William Regal on his phone, so she gets up on the desk and is like laying on the desk and like talking, like flailing her legs into the air. Then Bianca Belair shows up. She was tired of waiting and wants to get back on track and get her match for the NXT Women's Championship, because obviously she was supposed to be in the number one contenders match. She was injured, so she wasn't able to compete for the title. Fine backstage segment. I like how they're kind of putting so many different people in this scenario with Regal, definitely making it feel like it's an investigation and they're just asking anybody that they can. The Nikki Cross stuff, I mean, that's her character. It's adorable. She's just kind of crazy and loony and all over the place. I felt like the Nikki Cross stuff might have ran a little bit too long. It was kind of getting old at the very end, but I think Bianca Belair coming out, I really liked the interaction between Bianca Belair and Nikki Cross. Bianca was trying to be serious and talk to William Regal, and Nikki's just over there just flailing on. Bianca's like, Nikki, calm down, put your dog on a leash or something like that, and I'm trying to talk to Mr. Regal right here. So, good back and forth between the two. I definitely would think Nikki Cross and Bianca Belair would be a nice little feud going forward, and a good stepping stone for Bianca Belair to possibly go on to face off against Kairi Sane. So next up we have Keith Lee going up against Luke Menzies. Keith Lee's second match in his NXT career, at least on TV. Keith Lee gets a big response. Luke Menzies, I believe, is a former rugby player, good-looking dude, big, tough SOB. Good look. Not couldn't really see how he can wrestle, because obviously this is a squash match for Lee. Lee wins in 3 minutes. Menzies did get some offenses. I don't know if Keith Lee actually took a bump, so I guess even though Menzies was on offense for a little bit, Keith Lee wasn't in any serious danger. This was a good opponent for Lee to kind of show off his athleticism as well as his strength, since Menzies is a big dude. Just good match overall for Keith Lee, just building him towards whatever his first feud's going to be. Still no idea or they're not tipping their hand on what is going to happen. His bask in his glory type. Oh, one thing that I didn't like about this match was that Keith Lee, his whole gimmick is like bask in my glory. So what was going on was like the crowd was chanting for him, and Keith Lee was playing up to the crowd a lot, and it felt like every time Keith Lee did that, that's when Menzies was able to take advantage and get back on offense. So just kind of a thing of babyfaces acting dumb and pandering to the crowd, and that ends up costing them. It didn't ultimately cost him the match, but he made the match a lot harder than it should have been. So we have we had a video package for Oni Lorcan and Danny Burch saying that they're going to make their mark and they're building a comeback. So in 2 weeks, we will see the return of that tag team. Kairi Sane is advertised for next week as well, and they remind us that Gargano is going to face against Dream. So it looks like a good show next week, or I guess this week, or tomorrow. I would do this like a couple days after NXT. Now I'm doing a whole week after, so my timeline's a little messed up at the moment. So Ricochet and Pete Dunne make their entrances. Big response for both of those guys. And then the NXT Tag Team Champions, Roderick Strong and Kyle O'Reilly, along with Adam Cole without the North American Championship, make their way down to the ring. Obviously, we thought it was going to be the Tag Team Champions of Kyle O'Reilly and Roderick Strong, but Adam Cole, using the Freebirds rule, said that he wants to face against Ricochet, and that is made it. So he kicked out Kyle O'Reilly, and so is Roderick Strong against Adam Cole, and Adam Cole against Ricochet and Pete Dunne. Really good match. Adam Cole and Roderick Strong end up getting the victory in 9 minutes and 48 seconds. So, under 10 minutes, not the longest match. It didn't really have enough time to build and be the great match that it obviously could have been. But if they have this match at your local NXT house show, I think they could probably have a great match. Obviously, they're going more through the motions on a house show, but good match. Exactly what you would think from these two, or these four rather. They just kind of do their thing. Adam Cole was able to get the pin with the last shot and got the victory. So, just more build towards Adam Cole and Ricochet possibly having a rematch down the line on NXT, possibly just on a TV episode or on a takeover event. But as I said in the past, I fully believe it's going to be some sort of War Games match with Undisputed Era going up against everybody. So post-match, Undisputed Era was given a beatdown to Ricochet and Dunne, and then the War Raiders come out to save the day, and Undisputed Era run away, and that is the end of the show. So I thought this show was really good in terms of just storytelling and stuff like that. Not the greatest for in-ring work, but just a lot of different moving parts. First episode back from TakeOver, they're just kind of laying the groundwork for different storylines, just kind of recovering from some of the other storylines, so kind of wrapping a bow on some and starting others. So you have EC3 and Lars Sullivan. Obviously, that was supposed to be a match, the EC3 match with Raul Mendoza. What's the poor lad's name? Let's see, Raul Mendoza. He was supposed to face against EC3, so that was one match that was taken away. I think obviously that was just supposed to be a squash match for EC3. I think if it was just a regular match between the two, the match would obviously have lasted longer than what happened with the Lars Sullivan thing of just him kind of beating him down for a little bit. But the matches that were there, they were fine. The women's match itself was decent. I felt like obviously Aaliyah got a lot more offense in, so maybe that's kind of a sign that they have higher hopes for Aaliyah and maybe pushing her down the line as a heel. And then Dakota Kai, who is kind of been floundering at the moment, especially with her and Candice LeRae and even Kairi Sane, 2 or 3 kind of the same type gimmicks. They're kind of underdog, undersized baby faces. So, Kairi Sane has the more serious, more badass persona. Candice LeRae and Dakota Kai are more similar in the fact that they're kind of, the lovable underdogs. They're kind of not sure of themselves, and you kind of got to get them motivated. But then once they do get motivated and they get on the right track, they can be very dangerous. But next week, we have the Johnny Gargano Velveteen Dream match, so that should be good. Hopefully they give him the time, and hopefully there's no shenanigans involved, but there probably will be. So that is it for the NXT recap. So let's move on to the All In recap. And full disclosure, I did not watch the show live. I did not see that there was any major hiccups on the live feed, so that's good to see. I watched it on Fight TV later on the next day because my father's birthday was on September 1st, so I had to do a little birthday party thing with him. I was originally going to watch it on New Japan World because they announced on Twitter that they're going to put it on later or shortly after the All In show concluded. So they didn't really give a full timetable on when it was going to happen. I kept checked the next day, checked every couple hours, checked every 45 minutes or something like that, and they just didn't put it up, and I was getting frustrated. I was like, you know what? Screw it. Cody and the Young Bucks, they did a great thing here. They deserve my money. I'm going to give them $40 for the replay. So that's what I did. I watched it on Fight TV. And I think I made the right decision because obviously I think it was like halfway through. So what was it, like maybe 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock Pacific time? I think that's like the first time I actually checked New Japan and they actually had it on the service. But by that point I was practically done with the show. But I did also watch it. I watched it on September 1st, so a little after the show concluded. But I watched the WGN America 0 Hour special on Saturday. So just going to get in the recap. I'm not going to go over move for move like that. I'm just going to go over broad brushstrokes, my thoughts on everything from production to commentary to matches and all the other different storylines to penis druids. So the 0 Hour show itself, they started off with the Cody Rhodes and Young Bucks. They kind of did their little thingy. They were going to do the pyro, and it was kind of a little nod to WWE not doing pyro, so, blowing the whole budget on pyro before the show even started. I thought that was a nice little touch. So, it was an hour-long pre-show. All they had was the 2 matches, so they had to fill some sort of time. There were little things throughout the show that kind of, not to say they were, minor league or bush league type mistakes, but it was just kind of, you take some things for granted in WWE, like there was a backstage interview with Kenny, I believe, and maybe another person where it was kind of echoey, and it wasn't the best audio quality, because, I think it was the interview with Cody, because I don't think the interviewer actually had a microphone in her hand, so I believe they were just kind of using the microphone from the camera, which picked up like all the echoes and all the other stuff. So that was just kind of some other minor stuff that not detracted from the show, but just kind of maybe gives you appreciation for WWE and how crisp and clean it is, and like 0 mistakes production wise in terms of video cameras and audio. But from production wise, I thought it was a great show. I really liked the setup. It was minimalistic. I mean, the Tron and the rampway was huge. The runway or the walkway itself, the ramp, was a little tight, but I thought that was kind of nice. It kind of had like a little intimate feel of the crowd kind of being right on top of the wrestlers when they were walking down the ramp. The three commentators for the show was Excalibur from PWG, Ian Riccaboni from ROH, and Don Callis from New Japan and Impact. I think all three of them did a great job. They had a little kind of a rotating third. Don Callis left about mid or early on in the show to go talk to Kenny and coach him up a little bit. So they had some sit-ins for Don for the during the women's match and the NWA match, which was fun. But I think I love Excalibur. I think Excalibur is definitely underrated as an announcer. I think when he wants to be serious, he can be serious. He's kind of like I wouldn't maybe put him in the same breadth as Mauro Ranallo. I think Mauro Ranallo is probably the best wrestling announcer going right now. But I think Excalibur and Mauro are kind of like on the same beat, because Excalibur, he just pulls out these names of moves that I've never even heard before. Like I see them, but he gives them like the original name or like the Japanese version of it. And also Excalibur, I mean, PWG has a reputation for being a little silly and doing some dumb things, and Excalibur can play along with that. He's a funny guy. So one of the things was Excalibur and Ian Riccaboni, both play-by-play guys, but Excalibur kind of being a one-man announce team for PWG. He can do color and play-by-play, but I felt like there were some times throughout the show where Riccaboni and Excalibur were kind of stepping on each other. Like there was some times where they would say the exact same move, like at the same time. But besides that, I thought the commentary was great. No technical issues from their mic standpoint. No one farted into a mic, so that's always a plus, I guess. So on to the pre-show, even though I already said that like 3 times at this point. The first match was SCU defeating the Briscoes. I thought this was a good match. Obviously, I picked the Briscoes, trying to be a little different. I should have listened to my gut and picked with SCU. SCU had the storyline booked up for it, non-title match, so if SCU were to win, it wouldn't affect ROH that much. SCU is an ROH tag team, so I do believe this will set up a ROH tag team championship match down the line. Good match, nothing really to say here. Crowd was hot for it. That was one thing, I don't know, I know the crowd was super hot. There was points where you could really hear it. I felt like maybe they could have mic'd the crowd up a little bit better, maybe to get the crowd kind of louder, but there was definitely points when they were like on fire. You could hear and you can feel it. So I'm not downgrading that at all. Then we have the over budget battle royal. And by God, this was fun. I'm not going to lie. I think this is probably the best battle royal I have ever seen in my entire life. Not including Royal Rumbles, because Royal Rumbles are a different thing. But a battle royal, seen them at indie shows a bunch. Just the normal style battle royal where just everybody in the match is in the ring at one time. Everybody got their spots in. You had the Hurricane spot. You had Tommy Dreamer do his thing. You had Billy Gunn. Punishment Martinez. Just people on top of people in this match. They all had their spots. Rocky Romero. So many things. First off, we had Bully Ray put the poor lad of Hijo de Chico through the table. And I honestly forgot about him throughout the entire show. I mean, throughout the match. I just thought he was eliminated. I was like, damn, that sucks. But he was not eliminated. He was still in the match. And so then we go on through the regular match, the bulk of it, where everybody else gets their spots in. There was one lady, there was one woman in the ring. I am blanking on her name right now. Something Jaden. I don't want to say it because I know I'm probably going to butcher it. But she was there. She had great spots. She squatted Brian Cage. Great match whatsoever, great match all the way around. And then we had my boy Colt Cabana, who I picked to win the match because I thought he would have fit perfectly with the Black Machismo gimmick. Chicago boy, he's kind of been, messed up thanks to CM Punk and all the different things that have been going on in his personal life lately. I thought this would be a nice little feel-good story. But then, no, Bully Ray, that asshole, just dumps him over the top rope, and we think, oh, Bully Ray's going to win. He's going to go on to face Jay Lethal. It makes kind of sense. Bully Ray's been built up on ROH as a dastardly heel. But then Hijo de Chico comes out and hits him with a super kick, unmasked, and we find out that it is Flip Gordon, and he is booked for All In, and he is going on to defeat Bully Ray in this battle royal. He dumps him over the top rope, and he wins, and he's going on to face Jay Lethal on the main card. The crowd went absolutely bananas, and I can agree with them on that. I was going bananas as well. I mean, I honestly forgot about him when they put him through the table. I thought it was just a fun little spot because of what's been going on with being the Elite, and I forgot about it, and then he comes back unmasked. Crowd goes apeshit. It was great. I don't care if I was wrong. It was a great moment. And unfortunately, on the pre-show, I went 0-2, and I was already put behind the 8-ball, and I already kind of knew I was going to lose, and I had to really run the table to even have a chance, I think. But I don't know the results, but I'm pretty sure I didn't win the championship. But who cares, really? So next up, we have the opening show. We had a woman sing the national anthem. Good job. Not the best, not the worst. And we had the opening match. We had Matt Cross defeat MJF in 10 minutes. I thought it was a good match. Good opener, just straightforward. A match at least I didn't know about. I think a lot of people didn't really know about. Just kind of threw on there. I think definitely after everything that happened, I think this match definitely could have been cut, or should have been cut rather, just because of what happened later on in the show when they ended up going long for time, and the main event just had to be just cut, just spot, and they went less than half of what they were supposed to go. So I think this match, for what it was, I thought it could have been cut or possibly even put on the pre-show, because there was a lot of downtime on the pre-show, which I honestly appreciated. It was fine, especially probably being there live. You don't want to get too many matches on the pre-show where you get burnt out, and this show is 4 hours long, at just as long as some other match or some other shows for WWE, and yet I didn't feel as burnt out as I do for WWE matches. And I literally watched every single thing on the All In show. Sometimes for WWE matches, especially Raw, SmackDown, I'm usually fast forwarding through the entire show, and even on pay-per-view sometimes if I'm behind on it, I might even skip matches. Like I think the last one I kind of was behind on was like the Royal Rumble or the Money in the Bank match, and I think the Jinder Mahal Roman Reigns match, I just honestly skipped through that entire thing, and other matches just kind of picked and chose the matches. But I think for this show, I definitely wanted to get the experience, and obviously I kind of missed out a little bit by watching it live and kind of being like a communal experience, being on social media and see what everybody's thinking about it. Because honestly, I was able to avoid. Well, I saw probably the two biggest spoilers on the entire show. I saw the Jericho thing, and I saw the Cody Rhodes thing, but I assumed Cody Rhodes was going to win the championship anyway, so that wasn't much of a spoiler. The Jericho thing did kind of suck that I found out about that beforehand, but luckily I thought it was going to be during the match, so I thought it was going to play into the finish, but it didn't, and it happened after the fact, so it didn't spoil anything too much, because I was thinking, maybe Kenny's going to get screwed over and Jericho's going to pin Kenny for the victory, but that didn't happen. So next up, for what I felt like should have been the first match of the show, if we were going to cut out the actual first match of the show, Christopher Daniels going up against Stephen Amell, and Christopher Daniels defeats Stephen Amell in about 12 minutes. Good match. Stephen Amell, honestly, I have no idea. I did not know who he was. I knew who he was because he did the thing with WWE, but I don't watch Arrow. I don't know any other things he's really done, so he's not a big deal to me personally, but I think he's a cool guy, really good wrestler in terms of, for a celebrity, definitely, probably one of the best, if not the best, celebrity matches we've ever seen for anything. Definitely Lawrence Taylor and Bam Bam Bigelow is a high mark. Probably still the best non-wrestler wrestling match you've ever seen, but obviously Lawrence Taylor is one of the greatest football players to ever live, so just putting Stephen Amell in the same category as Lawrence Taylor definitely is a shout out to Stephen Amell, and I thought this match was great. They didn't do a whole lot of bells and whistles, didn't do a run-in with Neville, didn't do anything really, just a straight up one-on-one match. Stephen Amell got his spots in, did a coast-to-coast, better than Shane McMahon. Christopher Daniels, or Stephen Amell went through a table, I believe, tried to jump off the top, and Daniels moves out the way. Stephen Amell goes to the table, Good near falls between the two. I thought there was like one point in the match where I thought Male was going to win, but Christopher Daniels kicked out. So I think all in all, great match. I think all the matches on this show were from good to awesome, or good to great, whatever your higher definition is of great or awesome would be. But I really like this show just because all these matches were so different in their own special way. It's not like a WWE show or even some other indie shows where there's like maybe 2 or 3 matches back to back to back where they're all kind of the same thing. They all are kind of athletic matches. They all kind of have their stuff. And especially with this one and all most of the matches on this show, they all had their own storyline built into it, and people were definitely invested in what was going on. And it built up well. After the fact, Christopher Daniels shook Amel's hand. They rose each other's hand afterwards. So no shenanigans whatsoever. Christopher Daniels was technically the heel in the match, but people love him as well, being the ring general. And kudos to Christopher Daniels for. I mean, I wouldn't say he carried Stephen Amell to this match. I think Amell definitely held his own, but Christopher Daniels being in the right spot, doing all the right things. Amell did honestly mess up some things in the match. I think there was like a roll up or something where Amell did, and it did not look very good. So it just kind of reminds you of how hard wrestling actually is when someone in as great a shape as Amell is can't execute something as crisp and clean as a simple roll up. So just a little friendly reminder that wrestling, not everyone can do it. And then next up we have the Fatal 4-Way or 4-corner survival match between Tessa Blanchard, Britt Baker, Madison Rayne, and Chelsea Green. This match was, I believe, like the only match on the entire card except for the opener. But the opener was kind of a match that none of us really expected, so we didn't really think about it all that much. But this match did not have, I believe, any hype whatsoever. I mean, that I've seen. I mean, all 4 of these women aren't really with ROH. I believe, Madison Rayne has wrestled for ROH or Women of Honor, but all the other women aren't really in Ring of Honor, so they're not doing shows with the Elite, so they can't really be on Being the Elite, and they might, they can be like kind of Kenny, where they phone in some video messages and kind of build stuff up that way, but this was just kind of a four-way match. It was fine for what it was. I feel like it could have been cut for. If you're gonna go through the show, especially what happened, you probably could have cut some time off of this. Not really. 13 minutes was what the show or what the match was. Could have cut it down to 9-10 minutes. But I thought this was kind of a spot fest, not in the traditional sense, but it was just kind of like, we all have our match, we all have our moves. We got to, you do your spot, I do my spot, blah, 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 blah. It wasn't super crazy like a Ricochet Ospreay match or anything like that, but it was just kind of everybody get your stuff in. And Britt Baker came out to Adam Cole's music, which was a nice little call out. Chelsea Green did, I loved her ring attire. She had half her scorn lover or scorn wife, bride, I guess, gimmick on one side, and she had her happy, bubbly side on the other side of her face. So a nice little thing there, and she did the woo-woo-woo kick or whatever you call it for Zack Ryder during the show. So that was a nice little call out to her main as well. But in the end, Tessa Blanchard defeated these women for the victory. Obviously, I think all 3 of us picked Tessa Blanchard to win. Not real shocker here, being the new Impact Women's Champion, kind of the biggest star out of the 4 thus far in terms of the current. I would honestly say she's probably the biggest star out of the 4, even though Madison Rayne has had her run in Impact and definitely was the veteran out of here. But I think Tessa Blanchard being in Impact, being the champion at the moment, I think she definitely can do big things. She had her taste of WWE. Don't know if she's ever going to go back there. Chelsea Green, she had a tryout with WWE. I know Britt Baker's had one as well. Madison Rayne is in the Mae Young Classic. So not to say everything starts and stops with WWE, but that is ultimately, I wouldn't say the goal, but it's the biggest promotion in the world, and that's where you can make the most money, unless if you're a super big star or something like that. But especially for women, where the indie scene for women is probably better than it ever has been. But you probably can make more money in WWE than on the indie scene. So I think all 4 women definitely have a future. Madison Rayne maybe not as much, since he is kind of the veteran maybe winding down her career a tad bit, but maybe trying to go through a renaissance after having a kid. I don't know how many kids she has, but I think they said like she just enrolled her kid in like kindergarten or something like that. So her kid's like 5, if she doesn't have other ones, because honestly I don't really follow her personal life all that much. But I think all these women definitely can do big things in the wrestling business. Britt Baker is the one who has the least amount of experience, but I think she can be groomed. She held her own. She did nice work in the match. But I think definitely out of all of them, Tessa Blanchard, biggest star. I think Chelsea Green has a lot of upside. I think she's kind of underrated. I think we all kind of know her from her TNA days as the crazy ex-wife or ex-bride. But I think when it came down in the ring, I thought she held her own and she was really nice. So next up, going from one match that didn't have any hype to it, we had another match that had maybe not the most hype on being the elite, but a lot of hype going for it on other forms. On the 10 Pounds of Gold series, we had Cody and Nick Aldis doing their own thing on the side, and this match went 22 minutes. I thought this match also could have been cut for time looking back on it. They had a little spot in the match where Cody goes and jumps off the ring apron and goes to hit Aldis, and they do the whole thing where it was the whole work shoot angle where shout out to Earl Hebner, who was the I had gum and I didn't step in the gum. We're good. We're all right now. Earl Hebner throws up the X, so we're all supposed to be shocked and worried about Cody's health. But in the end, I'll believe it was a work. It was fine. One thing that I loved that was a nice touch is both of these men came out with the little fight camp behind them, kind of a nod to the old NWA scene. Also, what they do in the UFC and other MMA promotions. So I thought that was a nice little touch. DDP was kind of cornering, and DDP and Tommy Dreamer were cornering Cody Rhodes, Sean Daivari, and Jeff Jarrett were cornering Nick Aldis, but in the end all the camps went to the back, so it was just these guys one-on-one. DDP came out to kind of help Cody when they did the whole work shoot thing. Sean Daivari comes out and kind of yells at DDP. DDP hits the diamond cutter, crowd goes nuts, and then they just go out and go back to the back, and Cody comes up with blood all over his face, on his nice bleach blonde hair, which I kind of assumed was going to happen. It might have been, another callback to his late father, Dusty, with the bleach blonde hair, but I was like, oh man, he has the bleach hair, he's definitely going to bleed. He's going to get blood all over that nice hair and just have red hair by the end of it. It wasn't a gusher. It was definitely, when he started bleeding, it definitely was, all over his face and stuff like that, but then towards the end it kind of dried up, and it didn't look all that bad. But I thought the match itself, both of these guys, you're not going to say they're going to have the greatest match in the world. I don't think this was my favorite match of the show. But the emotion afterwards, Cody Rhodes ended up winning with Nick Aldis with the leverage pin. I believe that is a callback to the first time Dusty Rhodes won his NWA Championship. 39 years almost to the day that Cody Rhodes won his first NWA Championship, so a nice little callback for that. I wish they had that little nugget stored in the commentator's back pocket. They had Brandon something, I believe. Well, I know his name was Brandon, because it's a great first name. But he was on commentary, because this is when Don Callis dipped out. Oh my gosh. For the women's match, they had Emma, and oh my god, I know her name, but I'm just blanking on it right now. They had 2 women on commentary for the women's match as well. I thought the Cody Rhodes Nick Aldis match, it was good. I'm not going to sit here and say, it was a great match, one of the best of the night. It wasn't. It had great stories telling back and forth, solid match. Cody Rhodes definitely is not one of the workers that's going to bring Nick Aldis up to, an Okada, Kenny Omega level, and neither will Nick Aldis, but I thought they did good work back and forth, and the emotion afterwards was fantastic. I'll admit I got a little emotional seeing Cody win it. The Brandy comes out, his crew, his fight camp, you would say, came out and cheered with them. I was a little shocked that this match was on so early in the show, but I thought it made sense. It's kind of like a little cap on the first hour of the show. And yeah, just a nice moment for Cody. So then after that emotional roller coaster of Cody Rhodes against Nick Aldis. We go to Adam Page and Joey Janela in a Chicago street fight, and this one 20 minutes. Also, kind of a match you could have shaved a little bit of time off of. I think this match and the Okada Marty Scurll match were the two matches that went long. Okada and Scurll really went long. This one, I think, probably went over by like maybe 5 minutes or something like that. But this match was absolutely insane, as we all thought it was going to be. Joey Janela, who has a history of doing crazy things, jumping off things. I mean, I don't even want to say all the different things that happened. I mean, Adam Page gave Joey Janela a burning hammer off the ring apron through a ladder that was set up on the ring apron, connected to the guardrail. Joey Janela gets powerbombed off the stage, over the steps, and barely even clips one of the two tables. I don't know how he's still alive after that. And then he takes Adam Page's finish off the top of the ladder through the table for the victory. I thought Joey Janela was going to win because I thought Joey Ryan was going to come out and haunt Hangman Page to lead Joey Janela for the victory. Penelope Ford was in Joey Janela's corner. Honestly, I said I don't know a whole lot about Joey Janela and Penelope Ford. I mean, I saw him during WrestleMania weekend, so that was kind of my first introduction to him, but I don't know him as the hardcore guy that he is. And so this one definitely was what everyone thought it was going to be. Nice little Cracker Barrel sponsorship spot where they had an actual Cracker Barrel on at ringside. And yeah, so I mean, this match was absolutely insane. Great hardcore match. Definitely a different feel from all the other matches, and that's what I loved about this show. Just all these matches were so different in their own special way that it was just, it hit different emotions and hit different enjoyment levels, and that's what made the show refreshing and so great. So then after the match, we had a druid full of penises, men dressed up in inflatable penises, come out, and they had the whole Undertaker gimmick, and then Joey Ryan's music hits, and he comes out, walks through the druids, goes up to Hangman Page. Hangman Page literally looks like he's seen a ghost. And then Joey Ryan hits his dickplex spot, and they go home. I thought this was great. Crowd was going crazy for Joey. I mean, the penis thing was funny. It definitely was kind of a shift after the emotions of the Cody Rhodes thing that just happened. And I mean, I thought it worked. I know people don't like the Joey Ryan thing. I mean, I'm going to be honest, I've seen Joey Ryan a lot on the independent scene live at APW shows, so I've seen the dickplex spot a lot, but I thought this was kind of a nice little touch and a nice little way to, maybe change things up a bit. Maybe now he's going to be like a penis Undertaker now. He's going to, I mean, I've already seen his t-shirts on Pro Wrestling Tees. He already has a whole bunch of different Undertaker-inspired t-shirts, so good for Joey cashing in on this, and, easy paycheck for him. He just comes out, walks down to the ring, has a dickplex, and goes home. So next up, after we had the Battle Royal, that means that Flip Gordon was going to face Jay Lethal for the Ring of Honor Championship. And before the match, Jay Lethal was walking down to the ramp, and somebody gave him a glasses, and they hit him on the shoulder. And we all know what happened. They hit Pomp and Circumstance, and Black Machismo came out with Lanny Poffo in his corner. A nice little surprise to see Lanny there. Lanny also, Lanny also cashing in on this with the Brother from Another Mother t-shirt with him and Black Machismo on a shirt together. So hopefully Lanny gets some royalties and some nice t-shirt money from that. This was one of the reasons why I thought Colt Cabana was kind of the perfect foil for Jay Lethal, because I knew they were going to do some Black Machismo type stuff going on. So I thought Colt Cabana would have been a nice little comedy guy. I thought Flip could have been involved, something as maybe doing like a run-in. Maybe not a run-in, but maybe like an invasion of All In, because he's not booked, so he just kind of hops the guardrail and he does something, and maybe we get... I mean, I don't exactly know if you would want to have another return. If you do... As much as I would love to see a Flip Gordon versus Pac match, I thought that would be great. If you don't know, Pac is also Neville. So, Neville versus Flip Gordon, an impromptu match, I thought that would have been fantastic. But, no Pac, no CM Punk. The only real surprise we had was Chris Jericho, which was fine. I don't think the non-surprises or the non-returns or whatever you want to call it that people were thinking that were going to happen. There's no real big angle on the show except for the Chris Jericho thing. But I thought that was fine. I thought the show worked just well. So we had the Black Machismo Flip Gordon match, 14 minutes. Jay Lethal ends up winning in that 14-minute span via pinfall, hitting a lethal injection on Flip. I thought the match was good. They did little comedy spots with Jay going back and forth between regular Jay Lethal and Black Machismo. I thought it worked. Brandy was in Flip Gordon's corner. She looked like a fine little cadet. She was also in Cody Rhodes' corner, so maybe we might add some more tension between Flip and Cody. No Being the Elite yet being released thus far. I believe it was Nick, who's like the editor of Being the Elite, tweeted out that this is going to be like the longest Being the Elite episode ever because they have so much footage to sort through. So hopefully we get like an hour-long special on YouTube. That'd be great. I would love to see just a regular straight-up Jay Lethal versus Flip Gordon match for ROH. Flip Gordon signed to ROH, so definitely it makes sense for him to be in this spot and have a match later down the line. It doesn't have to be for the championship. Maybe Jay Lethal drops it down the line to somebody, and Flip Gordon can have a match with Jay Lethal on a ROH pay-per-view. I thought they had good chemistry. I think the Black Machismo thing, I wouldn't say it brought it down, but it was just another aspect of the show that, right after the Joey Ryan thing, so you already had comedy, and then you have this for more comedy, but it was kind of a different kind of comedy. It wasn't straight-up laughs. It was straight-up laughs, let's be honest, but it was fun to see Jay Lethal bring back the whole Black Machismo gimmick. So just another swell match. So next up, we have maybe the best match of the show. I'm still kind of debating between this one and the match after, and that is Kenny Omega defeating Pentagon Jr. in 18 minutes. Started off kind of like a little spot fest, I would say, but then they definitely reined it in and told a nice story. I thought they had great near falls at the end. I think there was one spot where I actually thought Pentagon was going to win, but he didn't. Kenny kicked out. They do the spot where Pentagon Jr. breaks Kenny Omega's arm, and Kenny actually sells it, and he hits the one-winged angel on Pentagon Jr., but he has to use his other arm to flip over Pentagon, and that is how he wins. Pentagon Jr. laid out on the floor while Kenny celebrates, and then the lights go black, and then we see Pentagon still laying on the mat, but then he goes and attacks Kenny. Pretty obvious that it was Chris Jericho because you can see by the arm tattoos. It worked for DDP when he did the whole La Parka thing because La Parka had the full get up, but obviously, Pentagon Jr. and Chris Jericho are two different body types. Pentagon's way bigger than Chris Jericho, so you can definitely tell that it was a different person under the mask. But I thought it was a nice reveal for Jericho. And then this is kind of just building up for the Jericho Cruise, the 6-man tag between him and the Young Bucks against Kenny, Cody, and Marty Scurll. So I thought it was fun. I thought it was a great match between the two. I'm definitely debating which match was better. There was they were hitting package pile drivers on each other, and they actually, it appeared that their heads were hitting the mat, which is not good. Pile drivers look devastating, mainly because they've tended to break a few people's necks in the past. So maybe they could have slowed the roll on that, but I thought they had a great match. But I think what I believe is the best match of the show, and that is Okada going up against Marty Scurll. Marty Scurll kind of being the underdog, babyface, kind of heel up against Okada. Okada was able to get the victory on Marty, but not after Marty put up a valiant effort. I thought Marty was super over on this show. I said it on the Bulletcast. I didn't think Marty was going to win, but I think if you can get Marty built up over time to where he's the ROH champion, which I think Marty's definitely destined to be the ROH champion, at least by the end of next year, if not sooner. I think Marty's one of the most over guys in the company. He's a big star. He's got the Bullet Club thing, which is kind of what ROH loves. ROH just has Bullet Club all over the place. And he has the New Japan cred too, but he is a junior guy, which was kind of the whole storyline going in. So maybe he does end up moving up to heavyweight. But that Madison Square Garden show, we could see an Okada Marty Scurll rematch, and if that is the main event of this show, with maybe IC champ going up against ROH World Champ, I would not be mad at that. This match was fantastic. This was the match that apparently went way over the limit. Tiger Tor was the referee, so don't know if there was any kind of communication issues between. I believe it was the Young Bucks that were on headset. I wouldn't know. Maybe Cody was taking over on headset since the Young Bucks match was next, so they had to, they had to get ready while Cody was on headset, or somebody else was on headset backstage. So maybe maybe sort of a language barrier, communication issue between the ref and backstage to kind of tell the guys to hurry up, because I believe they went like maybe 10 minutes over their allotted time, and the show was already definitely running long. They had the hard set 4-hour window that they needed for the pay-per-view. Apparently the pay-per-view providers were able to give them like an extra minute or two of airtime, but definitely this match went over the time limit, but it definitely was worth it. The match was great. There was a great spot where I thought Marty had it in the bag. He had his umbrella, cracked Okada with it, hit a Rainmaker. I thought it was over. I popped huge for it, but Okada kicked out. The crowd was absolutely insane for this match. Okada was able to hit the Rainmaker on Scurll for the victory. Just absolutely fantastic match. Okada came out in the Rainmaker attire. He had the no balloons. He had the Rainmaker robe on, so maybe we're seeing the evolution of Okada, maybe coming back to form. Still doesn't have the Rainmaker music that he had when he was champion. Still has the remix version, so don't know if he's going to ever change that. But this match was great. Maybe, you could have shaved some time off of it, which obviously they should have shaved some time off it, because the main event definitely was hurt by it. But match was fantastic. Favorite match of the show. Best match of the show. So the next up, we have the main event. The Young Bucks and Kota Ibushi, the Golden Elite, defeat Rey Mysterio Jr., Phoenix, and Bandito in 12 minutes. As I said, this match was definitely cut short for time. I believe it was supposed to go like 26 minutes, but it only went 12 minutes because of what happened early on in the show. And the match was just a spot fest if I've ever seen one. It was just bang, 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 bang. Everybody got to hit their spots. They just went through all their big spots. With Phoenix and Bandito, don't know if there's any of a language barrier there, but you had Mysterio, who's fluent in both, so he can definitely communicate and help out, with the communication. I think definitely when they went out there, they were told, like, okay, we definitely are short for time, and we got to hurry this thing up, and they were just definitely rushing to all their spots. It looked like they didn't cut any of the big spots out. There was one point where everybody kind of did their little flip to the outside, and Matt and Nick, after they just took this, splash, they, basically no-sold and had to walk all the way up to the ramp, and then they did something. Oh, God, I'm going to cough. Okay, I'm back. They did something with, I believe, Bandito or something. They did something crazy where they did something on the stage, and they end up, the Golden Elite end up picking up the victory. I don't know if they messed up the finish a little bit at the end, because Okada was getting the pinfall, and then Phoenix broke it up, but it looked like it wasn't supposed to happen, and then they had to rush quick to a Meltzer driver for the victory. So that was the finish, and as soon as the pinfall happened, they went right off the air. I think on the promo after the fact, the Young Bucks said that I don't know, it might not have been the actual promo after the fact, because my boy Wade Keller was at the show and was backstage and was talking to the guys, and I think someone said that it was 1, 2, 3 for the pin, and then 3, 2, 1 off the air. So they were so close to getting Goldberg DDP'd and just kicked off the air. There was talks of possibly maybe doing that, where they get kicked off the air and then they have to finish the match, or they have to show the finish later on being the Elite. Obviously, I don't think that would have been the best move. I think people might have been a little angry. It is the first go around, so they can always kind of be like, oh, we don't know what we're doing. We kind of messed up. Sorry, guys. It's a little endearing, but then after the fact, you might get a little sick and tired of it and be like, okay, but seriously, I paid all this money. I'm trying to watch the finish to the match I paid for. But this match, it's really hard to just critique it and say how good or how bad the match was. I thought the match was fine. I mean, maybe spot of the night was when Kota Ibushi gets tagged in, and Rey Mysterio and Ibushi are face to face, something you would never think you would ever see before, and the crowd goes absolutely bonkers for this spot. Not even a spot, just a stare down between these two guys. It was great. Definitely a little mad that they weren't able to get the full time and to see what they would have done, because I think definitely, I mean, we probably saw all the big spots they were going to do, but they just were not built up like they could have been, because, I mean, it probably would have been like the Golden Lovers against Young Bucks match in Long Beach a couple months ago. I felt like it probably could have been that good of a match, where they just pull out all the stops. I've never seen Bandito work before. I was impressed for what I saw. He had some great high-flying ability, great moves, fearless. Obviously, I know Phoenix, Rey Mysterio, a lot, Kota Ibushi, and Young Bucks, they did their thing. But the timing error definitely put a little damper on the main event. But all in all, great show. Will I say best show of the year? I mean, I can honestly say it might have been my favorite match, or my favorite show of the year, just because of what it represents. Biggest indie show of all time, just going up against WWE, and just going up against Dave Meltzer. He said you can't sell out 10,000 seats, and they do it in a half hour. I believe Matt tweeted out or Instagram something today where he announced the official attendance, and it was over 11,000. So, good for Cody and the Young Bucks. Hopefully they made a lot of money, but I know it wasn't about the money. It was about proving a point and, showing off the art and the passion of pro wrestling. And shout out to Conrad Thompson and everybody that was associated with StarCast. I didn't see anything from it personally, but I've heard about it. It looked like a great time. And they just kind of took over the Chicago area with a bunch of different wrestling fans. I mean, CM Punk did his signing at Pro Wrestling Tees. It looked like the line was, literally a mile long. And just an all-around great weekend for pro wrestling and pro wrestling fans. They teased a little bit about All In 2 coming up. Maybe they didn't really say anything in specific, I believe. I mean, if Cody and the Young Bucks, if those three guys are still free agents and not signed with WWE, I think it's really hard to say that they won't do another All In show. I mean, I believe this was such a success. I think you have to do another one, right? I mean, maybe not to the date. Maybe. I mean, maybe they want to cash in and make this an annual thing, like the Indie WrestleMania, where just everybody comes down and, you get everyone booked on the show, and it's this great thing. Do they go bigger? Do they go to a baseball stadium? Do a football stadium? Do they go to a major, arena where they can fit over 15,000 people? What's the next step for this? I mean, territories back in the day, they would run major. I mean, the Texas promotion, they'd run the Cowboy Stadium. They would do, I don't know exactly the numbers, but they would have a 60,000-70,000 stadium. I am gone way too long. I've talked all by myself for, I think at this point, an hour and 2 minutes. Jesus Christ. So I'm a little loopy at this point, but I think an All In 2, I don't know if it should happen. I think it'd be a lot of fun. Personally, I would love to go to one of these things. It looked like a great atmosphere and just a great all-around show. I definitely, it's going to be in the conversation for best show of the year. Maybe not for, I mean, when it came to in-ring, I don't think it disappointed whatsoever. It had great storylines built into it. I think that was kind of the thing when they first announced this, that it was just going to be kind of an indie show, spot fest type match or type show, and that honestly was not the case. It was a great show from start to bottom. No real disappointments, I would say. And so thank you guys very much for listening. This will do it for me for today. I did not think I was going to go this long talking about All In, but there was just so much stuff that happened on this show. This is practically almost as long as a regular Bulletcast episode, over an hour long. Thank you guys if you have stuck with me for this long. I know it's a lot to handle with me talking, but thank you guys very much. Goodbye and good night. Bang. Give me that Becky. Yeah.